For thousands of years, one question has survived the rise and fall of civilizations, empires, religions, and entire eras of human history without ever receiving a final answer. What if Atlantis was never just a legend? What if the most famous lost city in the world has been hidden beneath the ocean all this time, leaving behind real, unsettling clues, waiting for the moment when humanity would finally be ready to find them? Because the truth is this: every time strange images emerge from the depths of the Atlantic, every time sonar maps reveal bizarre formations on the ocean floor, every time researchers speak about structures that seem too organized to be natural, the same name rises back to the surface once again: Atlantis. Now think about that for a moment. A civilization described as wealthy, advanced, powerful, and magnificent, vanishing in a single day and a single night of destruction. An entire world swallowed by the sea. And centuries later, explorers, researchers, and survey teams reporting submerged formations, geometric patterns, and underwater anomalies so strange that even witnesses familiar with the ocean were left stunned by what they saw on the readings and in the images captured below. Could this be the greatest discovery in human history, or just another chapter in the most enduring mystery ever told? Before we go any deeper, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and comment below with your honest opinion. Do you believe Atlantis was a real civilization that disappeared? Or do you think it was nothing more than a brilliant myth that has deceived the world for centuries? Your comment helps this channel grow, and it may even be featured in future videos, because today we are diving into a theory that, for many people, may be closer to the truth than ever before. Everything begins with one name that has echoed through history for more than 2,000 years: Plato. It was Plato who recorded the story of Atlantis in the dialogues Timaeus and Critias, describing a great power located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the ancient name for the Strait of Gibraltar. According to his account, Atlantis was a vast island, a dominant civilization that ruled over other lands, with remarkable engineering, canals, monumental architecture, and an impressive political order. But according to the story, that civilization eventually became morally corrupted, and then, whether as punishment or as the result of some unimaginable catastrophe, it sank beneath the sea in a single devastating event. For a long time, many people dismissed the entire story as pure allegory, a philosophical invention created by Plato to discuss power, pride, and downfall. But there is one detail that never allowed the mystery to die: the level of detail in the account itself. Plato did not describe Atlantis as a vague symbol. He wrote about its location, its dimensions, its geography, its rings of land and water, its urban structure, and the violent natural destruction that wiped it away. And that is exactly why generations of researchers, explorers, and believers have asked the same question over and over again: what if he was not inventing the entire thing? What if, beneath the philosophical message, there was something real? Over the years, Atlantis has been searched for in countless places across the planet. Some connected it to the Mediterranean, especially after the destruction of the Minoan civilization on Santorini. Others placed it near the Caribbean, off the coast of Spain, or even in locations so far removed from the original description that the theory collapses under its own weight. But one of the most persistent and disturbing ideas points toward the middle of the Atlantic, especially the region near the Azores and the underwater elevations surrounding what is known as the Azores Plateau. And for many people, that theory remains one of the most compelling of all, because it seems to align far too well with the ancient description. First, there is the location itself. Atlantis, according to Plato, was beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which places it outside the Mediterranean and into the Atlantic Ocean. That immediately gives the Azores theory a kind of geographical power that many other theories lack. Then there is the geology of the region. The Atlantic around the Azores is shaped by tectonic activity, volcanic forces, fractures, underwater mountains, plate boundaries, and dramatic changes in seafloor elevation. To supporters of this theory, that matters immensely, because it opens the possibility that the landscape of this region may once have been very different from what we see today. And if that is true, then perhaps fragments of a larger ancient landmass may have been lost, broken apart, submerged, or transformed by catastrophic geological events over time. This is where the mystery becomes even more intense. Over the years, reports have circulated about submerged formations, stone steps, platforms, and structures with a strangely regular appearance linked to parts of the Atlantic near this region. In some cases, sonar images and seabed surveys revealed patterns that looked at first glance, too geometric to ignore. Straight lines, elevated surfaces, sequential formations, flat sections surrounded by more chaotic terrain, and every time such images appear, the same unsettling question returns. Could nature really create something like this entirely on its own? Or are we looking at the remains of something built? According to reports associated with expeditions and observers who followed these surveys, there were moments when what appeared on the screen seemed to defy expectation. Rectangular forms, step-like levels, features that resembled walls, massive blocks that gave the impression of deliberate alignment. For witnesses already familiar with the sea and with underwater topography, the shock did not come only from the shapes themselves, but from the disturbing feeling that the formations seemed too organized to be random. Of course, this is also where the controversy intensifies, because many geologists argue that volcanic and tectonic processes on the ocean floor are fully capable of producing formations that look artificial to the human eye. Even so, for those who continue searching for Atlantis, such images remain among the most provocative clues ever associated with the legend. Another element that gives strength to this theory is the relationship between the end of the last ice age and the rise of sea levels around the world. Thousands of years ago, the planet underwent enormous climate changes. Coastal regions were swallowed by water, landscapes disappeared, and territories that once stood above the waves were lost forever. That means the memory of a land destroyed by the sea is not inherently absurd. On the contrary, ancient peoples may very well have preserved, through oral tradition, the memory of real disasters that later evolved into myths. Over time, historical trauma can become legend, and legend can take on a life of its own. That is why some scholars and independent researchers suggest that the Atlantis story may be a fusion of historical memory and cultural dramatization. In other words, Plato may have inherited fragments of much older accounts, stories of earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic destruction, coastal societies wiped out by sudden catastrophe, and transformed them into a grand narrative about a powerful civilization destroyed by its own decline. But there is one question that keeps this theory alive. What if the legend is exaggerated, but not entirely fictional? What if, hidden beneath centuries of retelling, there really was a powerful Atlantic society whose destruction left a mark on the ancient imagination? Supporters of the Azores hypothesis often point to another important fact. The region lies near a tectonically unstable zone where plates interact beneath the ocean. That means seismic activity, volcanic history, and the possibility of violent geological change. In a story about a civilization disappearing suddenly beneath the sea, that matters more than almost anything else. An island or chain of islands in such a region could suffer collapses, eruptions, underwater landslides, and tsunamis powerful enough to erase entire settlements with terrifying speed. And if a civilization once existed there, even if it was not as vast or as advanced as later legends claimed, its destruction could easily have seemed apocalyptic to those who witnessed it or heard about it from survivors. But what exactly was found that has led so many to claim that the location of Atlantis may finally have been revealed, and that witnesses were shocked by what they saw? The answer is not a single final piece of evidence. It is not one perfect ruin, one accepted excavation, or one undisputed discovery. Instead, it is a collection of clues that, when placed together, create a picture that is difficult to dismiss. Underwater maps showing unusual elevations, sonar scans interpreted by some as ruins, rocky platforms that appear unexpectedly symmetrical, deep-sea anomalies that seem too structured, and above all, the uncomfortable coincidence that these signs continue to appear in a region that matches the ancient description more convincingly than many other proposed locations ever have. That combination is what makes the story so powerful. On their own, each clue can be challenged. A shape can be natural, a line can be accidental, a pattern can be a trick of perception. But when several unusual features appear in the same region of the ocean, the human imagination catches fire. Witnesses are disturbed, researchers are divided, skeptics grow louder, believers become more certain, and the mystery, instead of fading away, grows even stronger. Because what truly unsettles people is not only the idea that Atlantis might have existed. What unsettles them even more is the possibility that vast chapters of human history may still be hidden beneath miles of dark, silent water. There is also a psychological reason why Atlantis continues to fascinate the world. Atlantis is more than a lost city. It represents the terrifying idea that even a great civilization can vanish completely and leave behind almost nothing but fragments. whispers, and ruins beyond our reach. It touches a deep fear in the human mind. The fear that progress does not make us permanent, only temporary. Perhaps that is why every underwater anomaly, every unexplained structure, and every strange image from the depths keeps bringing Atlantis back into the spotlight. We are not only searching for a place, we are searching for a warning, a memory, and maybe even a reflection of ourselves. At the same time, it is important to stay serious and grounded. To this day, there is no scientific consensus that Atlantis existed as a historical place, exactly as Plato described it. There is no universally accepted excavation, no official inscription, no definitive archaeological proof that closes the case. What exists are theories, striking coincidences, debated interpretations, conflicting readings, and an ocean that remains far less understood than many people assume. And perhaps that is precisely why the mystery refuses to die. Atlantis exists in a rare space between myth, memory, speculation, and possibility, and that makes it almost impossible to let go. If this theory is correct, then the world may be staring at the submerged remains of a civilization that once rose to extraordinary power, controlled territories, and was erased by forces beyond imagination. If the theory is wrong, then we are still dealing with one of the most influential mysteries in human history, a myth so powerful that it continues to shape research, documentaries, expeditions, and public imagination even now. Either way, the impact is enormous, because either we are on the edge of rewriting part of humanity's forgotten past, or we are witnessing the astonishing endurance of a story so powerful that it survived longer than entire empires. And perhaps that is the most disturbing detail of all. Atlantis never needed to be found in order to conquer the imagination of the world. But if it is ever confirmed, there is no guarantee that the truth will be less frightening than the legend. The Lost City may not simply reveal a sunken civilization, it may reveal how much we have forgotten, how much of the ancient world still lies buried, and how little we truly know about the earliest chapters of human history. From that perspective, the real shock felt by witnesses may not come only from what appeared in the images or the maps, but from the terrifying realization that something once considered impossible is beginning to look disturbingly real. In the end, the question remains open, alive, and more unsettling than ever. Was Atlantis a philosophical warning, a distorted memory of ancient catastrophe, or a real city now resting somewhere in the Atlantic, waiting for the moment when the world is finally ready to face it? Maybe the answer is still hidden beneath the water, silent and untouched, while we struggle to assemble the puzzle from the fragments that time allowed to survive. Now I want to hear your opinion. Do you believe Atlantis could really be connected to the Atlantic near the Azores? Or do you think this entire story has been built on coincidence, speculation, and wishful thinking? Write your theory in the comments, because I truly want to know what you think. And if you enjoy serious content about mysteries, conspiracies, and historical enigmas that challenge the official version of the past, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to support this project, because here, the next great revelation